The man's name was Richard. He was a middle-aged spectator with a beer belly and a greasy comb-over who had been watching Martina's matches for weeks. She had first noticed him at the local tennis courts, his eyes glued to her every move, his face an eerie mask of concentration. Martina was only 16, but she had a talent for the sport that made her a star even in the dull suburban sprawl of her hometown. Her mother, a former tennis champion herself, had recognized her daughter's gift early on and had pushed her to excel. As Martina grew older, her mother had become more intense, her expectations higher, until it seemed like every swing of the racket was a battle between love and fear. But Richard was something else entirely. His gaze was not one of parental pride or coaching scrutiny. It was hungry, almost predatory. Martina tried to ignore him, but his presence was a constant, unsettling weight on her shoulders. One evening, as she practiced her backhand under the flickering lights of the court, Richard approached her, a bouquet of wilted flowers in his hand. She took a step back, her heart racing, and gripped her racket tighter. "Hey, Martina," he said, his voice a slither in the quiet night. "I've been watching you play. You're really something special." "Thanks," she mumbled, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. "I've got to go. My mom's waiting." "Your mom's not here tonight, is she?" His smile was too wide, too eager. "I thought we could talk, maybe grab some ice cream?" "No, thank you," Martina said firmly, her eyes darting around for an escape. "I've got to get home." "Aw, come on," he pressed. "You're not going to leave me hanging, are you?" "I've got to go," she repeated, her voice stronger this time. "I'll see you around." As she jogged away, the flowers drooping in her hand, she heard his footsteps retreating into the shadows. The encounter left her feeling violated and exposed, but she had a tournament the next day, and she couldn't let some creepy guy ruin her focus. The tournament was a local affair, a small gathering of hopefuls and has-beens, but Martina's mother treated it like Wimbledon. She had hired a personal coach, bought her the best equipment, and had her on a strict diet and training regimen. Every point won or lost reflected her own success or failure in her mother's eyes. On the day of the finals, Martina felt the weight of her mother's expectations like a leaden blanket. She was playing against a girl from the next town over, someone she had beaten in the past, but who had improved dramatically over the summer. As she took the court, she searched the stands for her mother's face, but it was Richard's that she found instead, lurking in the back row, his eyes never leaving her. The match was tougher than she had expected, with her opponent playing a fierce, relentless game. Martina's nerves began to fray, her shots going wide, her serves wobbling. The tension grew palpable as the score tied, 6-6 in the final set. Her mother's voice cut through the din of the crowd, sharp as a knife. "Come on, Martina, you can do this." But it was Richard's face that haunted her, the way he leaned forward in his seat, his eyes glinting with something dark and feral. It was as if he were willing her to lose, feeding off her fear and desperation. In the tiebreaker, Martina's mind began to play tricks on her. She saw Richard's leer in every line judge and opponent, heard his voice whispering in her ear, telling her she was weak, that she would never be good enough. The ball felt slippery in her hand, her legs like lead. She stumbled and fell, the score now 7-6 in her opponent's favor. "You're pathetic," her mother spat as she stalked off the court, her face a thundercloud of disappointment. As Martina picked herself up, her cheeks burning with humiliation, she could feel the eyes of the audience on her, some pitying, others judgmental. But it was Richard's gaze that felt like a vice, tightening around her chest until she could hardly breathe. She had to win this match, not just for herself, but to prove to him, to everyone, that she wasn't weak. The opponent served, and Martina barely made it to the ball in time. She hit it with a wild swing, sending it out of bounds. The crowd gasped. She could hear the murmurs, the whispers of doubt, but she refused to let it break her. With each point, she pushed herself harder, her muscles screaming for mercy, her heart racing like a wild stallion. The opponent served again, and Martina dug deep within herself, finding a strength she didn't know she had. She returned the serve with a ferocity that surprised even her, sending the ball straight into the corner, untouchable. The crowd roared, and for a moment, she forgot about Richard's leering presence. The match went on, point by agonizing point, until finally, with a triumphant cry, Martina slammed the winning shot. She had done it. She had won. The crowd erupted in applause, her mother's face a mix of shock and pride. But when she turned to find Richard, he was gone. The realization hit her like a cold shower. He had taken his victory in watching her struggle and had vanished into the night, leaving her with the bitter taste of fear and the sweet taste of triumph. In the locker room, her mother approached her, her eyes glistening with tears. "I'm sorry, baby," she said, her voice cracking. "I know I've been hard on you." "It's okay, Mom," Martina said, her voice thick with emotion. "I know you just want me to be the best." Her mother hugged her tightly. "You are the best," she whispered. "And it's not just about winning. It's about how you handle yourself when things get tough. I'm proud of you, no matter what." They stepped out into the cool evening air, the lights of the tennis court casting a warm glow around them. Martina felt lighter, as if she had shed a heavy burden. She had faced her fears and come out on top. As they walked to the car, she couldn't help but wonder where Richard had gone, what his next move would be. But for now, she was going to enjoy this moment of victory, this brief respite from the shadow he had cast over her life. The next week, Martina's mother found a note in the mail, unsigned and unaddressed. It read, "I've been watching you both. It's not over." The words sent the chill down Martina's spine, and she knew that she wasn't the only one who had noticed Richard's obsession. Her mother's face paled, and she clutched her daughter's hand tightly. "We need to tell someone about this," her mother said, her voice low and urgent. "This isn't just about tennis anymore."
"We need to tell the police," Martina's mother insisted, her grip on her daughter's hand tightening. "But what if he does something to me?" Martina's voice trembled with fear. "We're not going to let him," her mother said, determination in her eyes. "We're stronger than that." They reported the incident, and the police took it seriously, increasing surveillance at the tennis courts and advising Martina to stay alert. Despite the unease, Martina continued to train, her mother's support unwavering. During one particularly intense session, Richard emerged from the shadows, his grin more menacing than ever. "You're getting better, sweetheart," he taunted, his voice a hiss in the wind. Her mother's eyes narrowed, and she stepped protectively in front of Martina. "Get away from her," she warned, her voice filled with rage. "Or what?" he sneered. "You'll beat me with your racket?" "Or I'll beat you with the law," she shot back. The tension was palpable as they waited for the authorities to arrive, but Richard fled before the police could be called. It was a temporary victory, but the threat lingered. As the days turned into weeks, Richard remained a looming specter in Martina's life, always watching, always waiting. The fear grew, casting a pall over her once innocent love for the sport. In a dramatic twist, Martina's mother revealed a secret she had kept hidden for years. "Your father wasn't just a coach," she confessed. "He had enemies." The revelation shook Martina to her core. Was Richard connected to her father's past? Was she the target of some twisted vendetta? The tournament circuit grew more intense, and so did the stalking. Richard's presence grew bolder, his intentions clearer. "Mom, I can't do this anymore," Martina sobbed after a particularly harrowing encounter. "I can't play with him out there." Her mother looked at her with fierce resolve. "You're not just playing for yourself anymore. You're playing for all the little girls who can't fight back. You're playing to show him he can't win." Their bond strengthened. They faced the monster together, each match a battle not just for victory, but for their very sanity. The climax came at the state championships, where Martina had the chance to qualify for nationals. Richard's eyes bore into her from the stands, a silent threat that fueled her determination. As she served for the match point, she felt his gaze like a physical force, trying to trip her up. But she focused on her mother's voice, her words of encouragement echoing in her mind. The ball arced through the air and landed with a satisfying thud on the line. She had won. Turning to the stands, she searched for Richard, but he was gone. The crowd's cheers were deafening, but all she heard was the sound of her own triumphant scream. In the locker room, her mother hugged her, tears streaming down her face. "You did it, baby. You're going to nationals." But Martina knew it wasn't just about the game anymore. It was about reclaiming her power, her life. And she was ready for whatever came next. The days leading up to the nationals were fraught with anxiety and fear. Richard had gone to ground, but they both knew he was out there, waiting. Martina's mother had hired a security detail to follow them to every match, their eyes scanning the crowds for any sign of the stalker. On the day of the tournament, the tension was thick in the air. As Martina took the court, her heart hammered in her chest. She knew Richard would be there, watching, waiting for his moment, but she also knew she couldn't let him win. Her mother's voice was a constant in her ear. "You're so much stronger than he is. You're not just playing for you anymore. You're playing for every girl who's ever felt powerless." The first round went by in a blur. Martina's nerves, a jumble of nerves and adrenaline. She won, but barely. Her mind more on the shadows than the game. It was in the quarterfinals that she finally saw him again, his greasy comb-over and lecherous smile unmistakable. He sat in the same spot he always did, his eyes never leaving her. Her mother's voice grew steely. "Keep playing, baby. Don't let him get to you." But it was easier said than done. Every point was a battle not just against her opponent, but against the fear that Richard had instilled in her. She could feel his presence, his malicious intent, as if it were a tangible force on the court with her. In the second set, she stumbled. The score tied, she missed an easy shot, and the crowd gasped. Richard's smile grew wider, and she knew he was enjoying her pain. But then something changed. The fear morphed into anger, a white-hot rage that surged through her veins. She was not going to let this man control her, not anymore. With a roar of defiance, she served an ace, the crowd erupting into applause. Her opponent stared at her in surprise, but Martina's gaze was fixed on Richard. She served again and again, each shot more powerful than the last, each one a declaration of war. The match was a roller coaster of emotions, her rage and fear propelling her to victory. She won, not just the match, but a piece of herself back. In the finals, she faced her toughest opponent yet, a girl who had been her rival since they were children. But as she took the court, she knew she had faced worse than any opponent could throw at her. The match was brutal, both girls playing their hearts out, but it was Martina's sheer will that pushed her through, the knowledge that she was fighting for more than just a title. As she served for the championship point, she saw Richard leaning forward in his seat, his eyes gleaming with excitement. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The ball shot out of her hand, a fiery missile of determination. It hit the line, and for a moment, the world held its breath. And then, victory. The crowd roared, confetti rained down, and Martina fell to her knees, sobbing. Her mother rushed to her side, hugging her tightly. "You did it, baby. You're going to nationals." But Martina knew it wasn't just about the game anymore. It was about reclaiming her power, her life. And she was ready for whatever came next.
The following weeks were a blur of interviews, photo shoots, and congratulations. Martina's victory had not only earned her a spot at nationals, but it had also brought her story to the forefront of local news. The community rallied around her, praising her courage and skill. But the fear remained, a constant shadow lurking in the background. Richard had disappeared, but they both knew it was only a matter of time before he resurfaced. The police had no leads, the security detail was a constant reminder of their stalker's presence, and the once safe haven of the tennis courts now held an ominous tension. The day of the nationals arrived, and with it a new level of pressure. Martina was no longer just playing for herself or to prove her mother wrong. She was playing to expose Richard and send a message to the world that no one should have to endure what she had. The matches at Nationals were more intense than anything she had ever experienced. The competition was fierce, the stakes higher, but she pushed through, fueled by the fire of her anger. With each win, she felt stronger, more in control, but the fear never fully disappeared. It was during the semifinals that she saw him again, lurking near the fence at the edge of the court. Her mother's eyes met hers, a silent warning, but Martina didn't waver. She played on, her strokes precise, her movements calculated. In the final set, she felt a hand grab her from behind, pulling her away from the match. She screamed, her racket clattering to the ground as she was dragged off the court. The crowd erupted into chaos, players and coaches rushing to her aid, but she knew it was Richard. His hot breath was in her ear, his grip like iron around her wrist. "You think you're so special," he snarled. "You think you can just ignore me?" Her mother's voice cut through the panic. "Let her go," she screamed, brandishing her racket like a weapon. "Or what?" he jeered. "You'll hit me like a little girl?" But Martina's mother had had enough. With the warrior's cry, she swung the racket, connecting with Richard's skull with a sickening crack. He stumbled back, releasing his grip on Martina, who fell to the ground. For a moment, everything was still. The only sound, the panting of their breath and the dull throb of pain in the air. Then the crowd erupted, a cacophony of shock and horror. Security rushed in, tackling Richard to the ground as the police were called. Martina was left trembling, her mother's arms wrapped around her as the reality of what had just happened sunk in. The tournament was postponed, the final match left unfinished. Martina's mother was questioned, her actions scrutinized by the authorities, but the evidence was clear. She had acted in self-defense. The news spread like wildfire, and soon other women began to come forward with their own stories of Richard's obsession. His true colors were revealed, and he was vilified in the media. In the aftermath, Martina and her mother grew closer than ever before. They faced their fears together, their bond unbreakable. Months later, as they watched the recorded finals from the safety of their home, Martina's mother turned to her with a sad smile. "You know, you won that match the moment you decided to fight back." Martina nodded, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "But we still have to finish what we started." The next day, they returned to the local courts, rackets in hand. The same courts where it had all begun. The same courts where Richard had tried to break her spirit. They played, their hearts light, their strokes free of fear. And as they played, the shadow of their stalker began to fade away, until all that was left was the mother and daughter, two champions on their own terms. The story of their triumph over adversity had inspired others, and soon enough the tennis community came together to support them, to ensure that no one else would have to go through what they had. For Martina, the victory was not just about the game she won, but the battle she had fought, and the story of their triumph over adversity had inspired others. And soon enough, the tennis community came together to support them, to ensure that no one else would have to go through what they had. Martina's mother had faced her own demons, her own fears, and had emerged stronger, ready to protect her daughter from the monsters that lurked in the shadows. The Nationals had been a turning point, not just in Martina's career, but in her life. She had learned that sometimes the biggest battles were not the ones played out on the tennis court, but the ones fought in the mind and heart. And she had won, not just the match, but her freedom from the fear that had haunted her for so long. Together, they continued to play, to train, and to heal. The echoes of Richard's malicious whispers grew fainter with each swing of the racket, each victory, each shared smile between them. As they stepped onto the court for their first match since the incident, Martina felt a newfound power within her. Her mother's eyes were on her, not with the cold scrutiny of a coach, but with the fierce love of a lioness watching her cub. The match was hard fought, but it was their unity that shone through, their unbreakable bond that carried them to victory. With every point they scored, they were sending a message to the world and to Richard that they were not afraid. In the end, it wasn't the trophy or the title that mattered most. It was the knowledge that they had faced their fears and come out on top, that they had turned a horrific experience into a powerful force for change. Their story became a rallying cry for survivors everywhere, a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of darkness. And as they stood together, basking in the glow of their triumph, Martina knew that no matter what challenges life threw at her, she would always have her mother by her side. Their journey was far from over, but they had taken the first crucial steps towards reclaiming their lives. The tennis court was once again a place of joy and camaraderie, a place where Martina could chase her dreams without looking over her shoulder. The shadow of Richard had been cast aside, and in its place grew a legacy of resilience and hope, a legacy that would inspire others to stand up and fight back, to never let fear dictate their futures.